So today's video, you can tell by the thumbnail, is all about hidden gems in the fantasy realm that maybe some of us on BookTube aren't talking about very much. Maybe they were talked about a while back, but they've kind of fallen off people's radar. What I wanted to do today is kind of shed a light on some lesser known fantasy series that I found to be excellent for myself, and I hope you'll find them excellent as well. But of course, before we do any of that, we got to do one thing. We got to roll the intro. Hey everybody, welcome back to BellTube. If you're brand new here, my name is Brian Bell, and this is a channel that really covers everything from fantasy, science fiction. We do a ton of lit RPG on the channel. Sometimes we get into some comic content, but for the most part, it's sci-fi, fantasy, and lit RPG. Today, what I want to do is, like I said in the opening, share with you some series that I feel deserve your attention, but aren't really on anybody's radar, or if they were on somebody's radar, it might have been a hot minute since they've come up again. So let's get right into it. Kevin Hearne is one of my favorite urban fantasy authors, and yeah, he does have some other epic fantasy stuff, but the two series today that I want to bring up are his Iron Druid series and his Ink and Sigil series. Now, the Iron Druid series is pretty big. It's a 12-book series, but each book is like maybe 300 pages, maybe not even. So the premise behind the Iron Druid is we have our main character, Atticus O'Sullivan, who is really part of, the Irish pantheon of gods. Now, he's not a god himself, but he made the mistake a couple of thousand years ago of stealing a sword of one of them. And since then, he's been on the run. So our first book, Hounded, which is book one in Iron Druid series, really kind of brings Atticus to the forefront, where he's sick and tired of hiding from this Irish god, and he just wants to come back out into the open and deal with it as it were. It's an exciting series. It's funny in places. His attorney is literally a vampire. So there's a lot to love in the Iron Druid series. I highly recommend it. And the second Kevin Hearne series I want to talk about, enough of them I'm laughing a little bit. It's probably because I just blundered this several times and I'm chopping this together. Anyway, Ink and Sigil. It's an amazing series by Kevin Hearne. Our main character is a guy named Al, and his magic powers really revolve around certain parchments and certain inks and knowing certain sigils. And the combination of those three work to pretty wonderful effects. In the first book, we find out that Al has been cursed, and that if anybody around him hears him speak for more than an extended period of time, they instantly start hating him and eventually want to kill him. So where we find ourselves in book one is Al is trying to solve himself of this curse, because he's literally using like a typing text-to-speech device just so the people he loves don't, turn on him. It's a pretty compelling story. The cool part is there are two books out. A third and final book is coming out later this fall. That is Ink and Sigil by Kevin Hearne. I hope you check it out. The next series that I'm going to mention today, you've heard me talk about quite a bit, and it's really one of the reasons why I started this channel in the first place, because one of my favorite all-time urban fantasy series is right here, Sandman Slim by Richard Kadrey. And when I first found BookTube, I did a search for, who's reviewing Sandman Slim, and you know what? There's very, very few. I saw that Mark over at Slowly Read, which is a channel that's really not running actively anymore, had done a review on it, but there really wasn't very much other content. So I said to myself, there may be an opening here to talk about some urban fantasy along with, the traditional epic fantasy and lit RPG and everything else that we do here. But Sandman Slim is no joke of a series. Guys, this is New York Times best-selling author Richard Kadrey. This is trad published. There are 12 books in the series. Like I said, it starts with Sandman Slim, and I do have an autograph copy here, very cool, of book 12, which is the final book, and this one is called King Bullet. One thing I love about Sandman Slim series, obviously I love the whole premise of, this is a guy, James Stark, who has been sent to literally hell by a bunch of his friends, and he claws his way back after spending like a decade in hell, and he becomes the first person to ever escape on his own. And what does he want? He wants revenge against the people that put him there. It's a fantastic, magical revenge story, but the world opens up and it's extremely fun, and it's cool, and it's funny, and they read really quick. I just reached over for the book again. You can see these are short little books. They are what I would consider to be a hidden gem, right? They're small, they're shiny, cool covers. Anyway, I wanted to just bring some light to Sandman Slim again. I was just over on Talking Story with John Minton yesterday, and we were talking about some of our favorite anti-heroes and our favorite heroes. And for me, it doesn't get much better than Sandman Slim. If you've never checked it out before, do yourself a favor, grab book one, see if it's your flavor. If it's not, you've maybe spent a day or two on a book. But if you're like me at all and you like some of the content that I make here and you think our tastes might align, give Sandman Slim a try. Let's move on to the next book. Now, this next series, I should admit, I'm a little bit biased towards, and there has been, noticeable attention in this corner of BookTube about this particular series and, of course, about this particular author, but I wanted to include it in my Hidden Gems series today, just in case the algorithm decides to show this video to people that are totally brand new to BelTube. Every now and then, the algorithm shows it to lots of people, and I would be remiss if I did not add Dr. Philip Chase's The Edan Trilogy to this list of hidden gems. Now, this happens to be book 3, Return to Edan, but of course, book 1 is The Way of Edan, book 2 is The Prophet of Edan, and, here we have book 3, The Return to Edan. Now, why do I call this a hidden gem? Philip, Dr. Chase, Dr. Chase is the best of fantasy. He has, obviously, his own channel here on BookTube. I'll link it in the description. It's gone around for the last year and a half. People have been talking about this series, but I think they should be talking about it even more than they are. Hats off to Philip for doing an incredible job of self-publishing this book, which, by the way, it's not just self-publishing, it's self-selling this book, because when you self-publish, there's nobody else out there, hustling your book for you. You have to really become your book's PR agent, so to speak. And Philip's done a great job doing that, despite the fact that he is an English professor by trade. I am more of a salesperson by trade, and so I wanted to take this upon me today to share that the Edan Trilogy is absolutely a hidden gem. It's been picked up by the Broken Binding for special editions. I think, within this little sphere of BookTube that I sort of live in, yeah, the Edan Trilogy is pretty well known, but again, outside of it, maybe not as much, and that's why I'm including it in this list today. I found so many compelling things about this book series. The characterizations, phenomenal. The plot, phenomenal. You don't get really a trilogy where you could feasibly end it after book 2, because when book 2 ends, sort of a lot of the, I don't want to spoil anything, but when book 2 ends, a lot of the conflicts that we've been going through in books 1 and books 2 resolve. So where does that put us for book 3, Return to Edan? I'll tell you where it puts us. I'll tell you where it put me, in an entirely different, amazing place. This book, for me, Return to Edan, was the best of the bunch by far, and that's supposedly after the main conflict has been resolved. So, if you've not read the Edan Trilogy, I don't know what you're doing. Go get The Way of Edan. It's epic fantasy at its best. It's a hidden gem, probably to the rest of the world out there. Maybe not so much to us. I wanted to shout out Philip. Get that series. And by the way, if you like kind of the vibe of this channel a little bit, if you feel like you want to sometimes come in for some information about books, if you like some entertainment about books, because I really do consider BelTube almost more of a booktainment channel than just strictly information. If this vibe kind of suits you and you want to find out more about what we do, there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can hit that little thumbs up button, which is the like button. It helps more people see our channel and helps us grow. It helps me a ton, so thanks in advance if you choose to do that. And of course, there's always the subscribe button. It's free. It's really cool. cool. You join our BellTube community. You get a chance to vote in our polls that we have every month where you guys dictate what I read. So if you want your voice to be heard on the channel and you like the vibe and you'd like to get to know us a little bit better, think about hitting the subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Let's get on to more series. Okay, the fourth series I want to share with you today is also traditionally published. It is a completed series. It's a 12-book series, but caveat, they're very, very quick, short books. And I am talking about Benedict Jacka's Alex Verus series. We are back in urban fantasy here. We took a little detour right through the epic fantasy world of Philip Chase. We're circling back over to urban fantasy for a minute where we follow our main character, Alex Verus. Book 1 is called Fated, and in this particular book, it's set in England. It's set, I believe, in Camden, if I'm not mistaken. But for all intents and purposes, wizards or magicians in the Alex Verus universe are called mages, and each mage has a kind of a specialty. Alex Verus's specialty, and we find this on page 1, so there's no spoilers here, is divination. He can basically see potential futures and decide among those potential futures which path he wants to take. Now, Alex Verus is an interesting character because he's not like this white knight where he is, the superhero out for good. In fact, he was raised and trained by dark mages. He escaped the dark mages' control, but it's not like he's this great hero either. He's got a lot of inner conflict going on, really, because he sees black and white is just one big giant shade of gray. Because in the Alex Verus universe, there are the light mages, there are the dark mages, but he really doesn't fit either group very well. I loved this series. The best part for you is you don't have to wait. The entire series is complete. They read so fast. They are entertaining. If you're like me and you like some really deep thinking fantasy books and sci-fi books and lit fic books and books that are dense and just really make you stop and think and you need a breather afterwards, boy, is Alex Verus a terrific series to jump to for that. Sometimes they'll be called like popcorn reads. I wouldn't diminish it like that to say it's just a popcorn read. There is a lot of fun, and yeah, it is kind of like a popcorn movie in some regard, but there's some serious themes within Alex Verus, particularly where it revolves good, evil, darkness, light, those types of extremes, and where I think the vast majority of people generally find themselves in real life. I hope I did a decent job on selling you on Fated, which is book 1 of Alex Verus. If I did, let me know in the comments that you're checking it out. All right, the next series that I want to share with you today, this is one that I've never heard anybody in our corner of BookTube talk about. Now, when I say our corner of BookTube, I know that might seem a little confusing, but we have sort of the usual suspects over here where I'll just rattle a bunch of names off. You've got Mike's Book Reviews, you've got Patrick Leo, you've got Jimmy Nuts, you've got the Library of Alexandria, Alan, you've got Talking Story, you've got Tori Tech, and I mean, the list goes on and on. That's sort of this corner that we live in, and I know I just omitted about 20 booktubers' names. Please forgive me, but I've never heard a single one of them talk about the series by Kel Cade called Free the Darkness, and book 1 is called King's Dark Tidings. This is just such a cool series. I know there's at least 5 books out right now. I've read the first 4, I want to say, thoroughly enjoyed them all. Here's the premise. We have this mysterious baby being delivered by horseback to almost like this monastery filled with vicious assassins. He's basically Batman, but, under the direct control of some questionable people. His name is Rezkin in the series, and it's been some time since I've read this series, so I apologize in advance if I'm not giving you a complete enough story. What I will say is that he follows a very strict set of rules. And when I say that, I do mean a set. They are numbered. He will often say, rule number 27 is blah, 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 blah. Rule number 14 is blah, 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 blah. And he runs his entire life based on these very specific rules that he's been given. And our story really takes off when his mentor, the number 1 guy in his order, is about to tell him what rule number 1 is. and dies halfway through his sentence, and our main character hero Rezkin maybe misinterprets what he's saying and he can't ask him about it. And the story moves on from there. We have a very small cast of characters at the beginning, but the world does open up towards about book 3. Like I said, there's only about 5 books so far. I don't know if the series is completing at that point. I have to be honest, I only remembered this series when I was thinking about making this video, thinking about what are some hidden gems that don't get talked about that much. King's Dark Tidings, absolutely free the darkness. I would check it out. Now, this series has come up as of late quite a bit. It's been talked about over on Mike's Book Reviews. I think somebody sent it to John Minton to Talking Story during his book haul. But this series is Larry Correia's Saga of the Forgotten Warrior. There are currently 4 books in this series, with the 5th and final book coming out the early part of next year. Wow, do I love this series. My friend Madison Goodyear turned me on to this a couple of years ago, and I had no idea what I was getting into. I had never read a Larry Correia book. I know he's been very famous for the Monster Hunter International series. I hadn't read it yet, so I really didn't have much to go on. I gotta tell you, this thing is a fantasy thriller. It's basically its own genre. It's like epic fantasy combined with an action thriller, and that gets us basically a fantasy thriller in the Saga of the Forgotten Warrior. This is book 1, Son of the Black Sword. I happen to have all the other ones on ebook, but they read really quick. And one of the things that you're going to notice about this list, with maybe the exception of the Edan books, is they all are really quick reads. I don't know if that causes them to become hidden gems. Maybe quick reads aren't taken as seriously. I have no idea. But if you've not read the Saga of the Forgotten Warrior and you like epic fantasy and you like thriller types of either books or TV shows, it's like if you mashed, 24, the TV show, with, your favorite fantasy, and boom, there you go. I strongly recommend the Saga of the Forgotten Warrior. It's a ton of fun. Larry Correia is great at breaking tropes. So where you think you know where it's going, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I'm a big fan of this series. I hope you check it out. And that's going to get us to the one for the road today. And for the one for the road today, it kind of goes with our theme of hidden gems, and that is to keep your eyes open and to keep a set of awareness going, really not only in your reading, but just in life in general. I think a lot of us get blinders put on us, either because we are so into our own regimented routine and we're kind of just focused like this, not necessarily because we're so goal driven, but because we are all creatures of habit, and I fall victim to this myself. This is definitely not me saying that I don't do the same, but I think it's kind of natural sometimes to get into a routine, to get into habits, sort of put blinders on and not really stay aware and alert and our eyes open to new opportunities and to new things. And this whole video about hidden gems kind of gets to that, where maybe sometimes we just need to look up or look down or look to the left and look to the right and see what we're missing. Because I know for sure for me, I'm missing a ton. When I get real tunnel vision, I miss the world that's going on around me. Now, that may be in life, that may be in personal relationship opportunities, that might be in work opportunities, it might even just be nature itself, right? So when we go outside and we go get our mail, or maybe we get on our bike, or maybe we get in the car and drive somewhere, our minds are generally wherever the destination is, rather than taking a look around and just admiring what's around us and noticing what's around us. So one for the road, let's keep our eyes open a bit. Let's stay a little bit more aware. Let's stay a little bit more awake, conscientious of what is actually going around us. So when opportunities unfold, we are right there to take advantage of them. Now, what I would like to know is, what are your hidden gems? What are some series or some standalone books, whether it be in fantasy, science fiction, lit fic, could be lit RPG, whatever it is, I read all of them, and I get some of my best TBRs right off of these comments. I want to know in the comments, what are some of your hidden gems that you would recommend if you had your own BookTube channel? chances are I'm going to find something in the comments because I read them all and I respond to them all personally. I bet you that there is something down there that's going to wind up on my TBR before the end of the year. So please do comment. Let me know it's a hidden gem. By the way, some of you guys have asked about our Patreon. I'll link it in the description. The price is so ridiculous. It's less than $2 a piece. Yesterday on our Patreon, I did an unboxing of Project Hail Mary. I'm not sure if it's in frame right now, but it's the Broken Bindings edition of it. So if you want to help the channel out in a little bit of a different way and you want to join our intimate Patreon, it is in the description for you. Stay positive, everybody. Keep your eyes and ears open. Stay alert. And of course, here's your fortune.